Hold on.
Great cultural institution.
There we go. This is the Beck Theatre in Hayes, and Boris Johnson and others have been debating the virtues or otherwise of the third runway, potential third runway at Heathrow. The man in front of me is Mr. Kit Malthouse, one of Boris's deputies. Very important person. He's not going to tell me anything about who's going to get the job as the next Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. So I'm not going to ask him about that. But I've got three questions for you, really. Do you think that so-called Boris Island, as it is sometimes mockingly known, principally your idea, I think, of a completely new, not really your idea?
Well, it's an idea that I brought to prominence.
Oh, okay,
It's an old idea.
Do you think, having seen the amount of feeling there's been against the third runway here amongst local people, do you think that idea is a little bit nearer to coming to fruition?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an idea that's time is coming. I mean, we've reached a real pinch point now with Heathrow, and I think people are concerned about the fifth terminal and the third runway is really concentrated people's views about Heathrow. But also, they've seen that successive governments have been suckered by BAA. They keep constantly asking for more. And I think finally there's a realisation that maybe a proper drains up and look at something completely different might be worth a go.
Okay.
I think also we've reached the point of saturation in West London where people are seeing the balance between London as a money-making machine and a great place to live tipping. And so that means that the idea is getting a lot more purchase with people. I think also the fact that people see the third runway largely driven by the Irish in charge of BA and the Spanish in charge of BAA makes people suspicious about whether it's really in the country's best interest.
Oh, right. That's a very interesting point. There was a few interesting. There was a lot of passion from the audience, but there are two or three people stood up with very particular ideas, people who knew a little bit about the industry. Any of those ideas particularly appeal to you?
Yeah, there were a few people. I mean, there's obviously some people stood up and talked about high-speed rail, and that's obviously critical to Boris Island taking place, and some people stood up with plans about funding and environmental issues and all that kind of stuff. And that's all going into the mix and been given to Doug Oakerby, who's the guy working on the project for us, who built the same artificial island airport in Hong Kong in 6 years flat, by the way, from start to finish. It cost only $20 billion. In those days that was £10 billion, now it's a little bit more. But yeah, it's all that stuff will be fed into him, collected from tonight. In fact, on Friday, Dave, we're all on a boat off to the site to have a look around.
Do you know, that was just my next question.
Okay.
Did I remember correctly you were going up there on Friday? Are we invited, the press?
You're not, I'm afraid. We are taking one or two members of the press, but it's not a huge... I know you're used to luxury liner Gin Palace type treatment.
Of course.
We're going on a fairly small dredger. But we are, interestingly, taking some members of the all-party Thames Estuary Airport group that was formed on Monday, with Bernard Jenkin, who's an Essex MP, and Nick Rainsford, former Minister for London, as chair and vice chair of that group. And interestingly, people are saying that's one of the most powerful, impressive all-party groups that they've seen for a long time in Parliament, really covering the whole spectrum of people who think that having a visionary idea for aviation in London, that it's an idea that's time has come.
Oh, God, he talks well. Do you think, finally, this evening, this is people's question time, it turned into a bit of a rally, didn't it? It was a kind of protest movement, and a bit of a political rally, bit of a cheap joke, not having a name tag for Gordon Brown, knowing he wasn't going to be here. Well, isn't that all a bit naughty? Is that really what people's question time are meant to be about?
I mean, look, two things. Gordon Brown wasn't the only person who was invited, okay? London First were invited, Fitzpatrick, the minister, was invited, various people were invited, all declined to come. Fundamentally, it's Gordon Brown who took the decision. And we actually got a fax from Gordon Brown this afternoon saying that he wasn't going to attend, so up until now we'd assumed he was. But nevertheless, we were making a point. But the truth is, what you saw here today is the passion of a group of residents who don't feel they've been listened to.
Yeah.
And they really, really feel disenfranchised, taken out of the democratic process, ignored, and this isn't just a community, a sort of transient community. This is people who have relatives in graveyards that are going to have to be moved, people whose kids are in schools that are going to have to be closed. I mean, you heard, stuff about an RAF pilot who came from France to fight here, who's lived there all his life, who's going to have to be moved at the ripe old age. This is serious stuff. You're messing with people's lives. And to do it in such a seemingly arbitrary way, and frankly on a kind of pounds, shillings and pence only basis, is pretty crazy.
You've had your 5 minutes, but thanks very much for them.